one of the things I told Bob Purcell that would have to go were 3 of the 6-man staff that he had on the air, because they just couldn't be DJs. And so, but I didn't want to fire anybody, so we put them in the newsroom, because the news presentation was going to change pretty dramatically too. And so that seemed to be okay, but I had to fill up those spaces. But I had my favorite DJs. One of the guys who was working for me in El Paso, Ted Quillen, he came in. The other 2 came from Gordon McClendon. There was Bruce Hayes, to do the morning show, who was doing mornings in KLIF. And the afternoon show was Elliott Field, who was doing the afternoon shift in another one of Gordon's stations. So anyway, they came, and that was the staff. We had 7 guys: Mitch Reed, Bill Balance, Al Jarvis, Joe Yoakum, and TQ.
Of the original 3 that you kept, how did they react when they were told what color radio was going to be?
Well, for the most part, they accepted it. And I told them that the news was going to change, because I had this weird idea that the news, I was very impressed by something that Time magazine did. And basically, in those days, if you read Time magazine from the first page to the back page of that magazine, everything continued. Even if you were going from the business section to the showbiz section, there would be some kind of little trick of the language they could do, which would carry one to the other. And I thought that was a great idea. So I told the DJs that all the stories one had to lead to the other, to the other, to the other. And so they had to write the news that way. And that the other thing, they had to write the news, because I didn't want it sounding like any other.
And you're saying the DJs had to write it?
Well, the guys who were DJs, okay, or who were radio personalities, and that I sent to the newsroom, had to do those things. And we had a tremendous news director, but he wasn't the news director when I came there, but I made him the news director, whose name was Charles Arlington. And do you remember the TV shorts? I mean, not the motion picture shorts. On a Saturday afternoon, there would be this short, and it would be called The March of Time. Well, the voice of that initially was a guy by the name of Van Voorhees, but he died before The March of Time did, and they hired Charlie Arlington to come on and be that voice. The March of Time. And so he had a wonderful, wonderful voice. And so I hired Charles to be the news director, and he was in charge of all of this. And the wonderful thing about Charlie is because Gordon McClendon had always done these incredibly produced news intros. In London, it's 6 o'clock. In Singapore, it's 3 o'clock. And in Dallas, it's so-and-so, and it's time for the Dallas, and so on. Well, I was fine, but I didn't particularly like those things, so I thought I was going to go just the opposite. And so I had Charles just come on the air and says, this is Charles Arlington, and I have news for you. And then, bingo, we were into the newscast. And so each of the guys had to do that. But they had to write their own thing. And when I had this thing about writing it all as one story, oh, God, they rebelled. And came in as a unit and said that they couldn't do it. They would. Now, by the way, this was 6 or 8 months into the color radio. But they rebelled and came in and said, we sound like a bunch of assholes, blah, 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 blah. So I said, okay. You're still going to write it, but you can forget the connections. Oh, thank God. Okay. So any changes I've made in the programming, I always promised my boss, Robert, that I would tell him what was going on. So I put the little intercom and said, Robert, you know that wonderful news concept I came up with a couple of weeks ago? Yeah. Well, the newsmen hate it. And so we're going back to the non-connection stuff again. And Purcell said, "Oh, thank God." And then it was then that I realized maybe that wasn't such a hot idea.